Hi, welcome to the All Things LGBTQ interview show, where we interview LGBTQ guests who are making important contributions to our communities.
All Things LGBTQ is taped at Orca Media in Montpelier, Vermont, which we recognize as being unceded Indigenous land.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
As the public media is reminding us, this is the 25th anniversary of civil unions here in Vermont and the Baker decision upon which it was based. So today we just happen to have that Stan Baker and his husband, Peter Harrigan, to talk to us about, oh my, what was that like? So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
You look so serious. It's not the Stan and Peter that I've known, but so I want to start by talking a little bit about who you both are individually. What is your connection to Vermont and what makes Vermont home for you? And either one of you can start first.
So I grew up in Southern California. I was born in Kansas, and like Dorothy Gale, went to the land of munchkins and color and Technicolor. I grew up in Long Beach, California. I decided to go to college on the East Coast. So I went to college outside of Philadelphia. I went back to LA, taught for 3 years in early ed as alternative service. Then got married to a woman, and we came east in a converted Dodge van that I refit as kind of a camper-ish thing. And I was really interested in having visited my relatives in Iowa a lot, I won't make this too long, in being in a place with seasons, with houses with attics and basements and all of that. So we looked in northern climes and really, after traveling around New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, decided on Vermont and decided whoever got the first job, that's where we'd settle. I got a job as the director of the Head Start Daycare Center in Winooski, so we settled in the Burlington area. I do have Vermont ancestry. I'm directly descended from Remember Baker, who was Ethan Allen's first cousin. So there's kind of that connection too. And I think that our lawyers kind of liked that too when we were casting around for the name of the case. Plus, I was first alphabetically. My name was easy to spell. So that's probably why Baker decision. And I always say, named plaintiff, not lead plaintiff, because Peter and Holly and Lois and Nina and Stacy were so equally important in what happened. So I got to Vermont, stayed here, eventually was an early childhood educator, started and ran a school in Addison County, retooled and became a child and family therapist, expressive therapist, play therapist, worked for counseling service in Middlebury, where Bill Lippert hired me. And then worked at Howard Center as clinical director and then in private practice for a long time. So that's where I am in Vermont, and that's what I do.
Hey, but I'm going to interrupt here for just a moment. And thank you for explaining how it became the Baker decision, because that's a question people always have. I also understand you might be ordained in there someplace.
I am also an ordained clergy person in the Episcopal Church. So I was for a long time the Reverend Stannard Baker. Now this is very deep weeds Episcopaliana. I'm now the Archdeacon for the diocese. So my title is now the Venerable Stannard Baker. So I'm trying to live into being venerable.
Okay, I'm going to be watching for that transition.
And it is an important part of my life. I'm on the executive council of the larger Episcopal Church, which is all of the United States plus 17 Spanish-speaking countries, and on the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music, or liaison to that. So I have a lot of roles, and I've been deputy to the General Convention many times. So it is a big part of my life.
And they definitely need to hear the voice you represent.
Well, and in that time, we brought same-sex blessings to the Episcopal Church and the ordination of gay bishops and priests, and kind of trying to reach full acceptance of queer people. And we've done I think, very well with that, with some splits, but not as many as some church groups have, church denominations have experienced. So that came after. We were always very careful in the civil union debate to say this is civil union. This has nothing to do with making any church have to do anything. But then after that was all said and done, it was important to me to dig into my church and create openness and acceptance to queer people. So Peter.
No, I was going to say, I'm
Okay.
going to give you fair notice because this is a conversation I've wanted to have with a variety of clergy. So, and I'm warning our viewers that I'll be reaching out to you again for an additional
Sure.
conversation. So now the patient and no less venerable Peter.
So, I was born in New Hampshire and grew up around the Northeast. I lived in New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, and Eastern Pennsylvania. And then I went to college at St. Michael's College. So that was my first time in Vermont. Was here from 79 to 83, which was a wonderful experience. I went to graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh. I taught there for 5 years. And then in 1991, I had the opportunity to come back to Vermont to teach at St. Michael's, which I was very excited to do and am still doing.
All right.
Peter
So,
teaches theater, directing and costuming principally, said
well,
his venerable husband.
I was going to say it is a more condensed resume, but from seeing some of the things you've done, it's an impressive resume, and people should pay attention to what you're doing at St. Michael's, excuse me.
Thank you.
So how did you meet?
Well, we met at a workshop that was being coordinated by two of our friends, for me, Howard Russell, and for you, Dave Landers, right?
Right, and also John Olson.
Also John Olson. And we were going as sort of a favor to them. I believe the title of the workshop was Hot, Safe Summer Sex. And the idea was that many of us who came out midlife had had Safe Sex 101, but we're not very well versed in the intricacies of the dating world. And this was sort of, so what do you do once you've met somebody? So we went as a favor to those people. And Dave Landers always loves to say, and he's right, that he introduced us. So Dave, if you're listening, you did introduce us and we are deeply appreciative. We met, and I saw this very handsome, in my eyes, preppy in the right way guy, and gave him my number and said, I'd like to see you again. And then
And I was going to say, and Peter, it was obviously an offer you couldn't refuse.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can say when we met again.
We didn't exchange numbers. So
Sorry.
A little bit of a contradiction there, but Stan did come over at the end of the evening and said it was nice to meet you. And I just, that, left a nice impression on me. But then a month to the day later, we ran into each other at Pearls, which for, many listeners will remember that was one of the only gay sort of bars, clubs in Vermont for a very long time, and was a meeting place for the whole community for 20, 30 years. We met there, and that was when we met again, and that was when we exchanged numbers and made plans.
And I believe that we'd gone. I went with Howdy Russell. He and I were not dating. I want to make that clear, Howdy, if you're hearing this. We were good friends, very good friends. And so we went, and you went with John, is that right? Maybe?
No, I think I was by myself,
yourself,
actually.
And then I spotted him across the room. And my view of Peter is, and I know this is not right because it was summertime, but that he was wearing like this wonderful sort of crew neck sweater and just the right shirt and standing across the room, radiating like a star. He was probably in something more like what you're wearing now. But
Probably, yeah.
But that's etched in my mind.
Okay, Peter, don't challenge that memory because you're going to be able to use it to your advantage.
He's heard it before. It's not, and then
Okay.
we began to date, not moving in with each other right away. In fact, I then lived in Middlebury in a little apartment, and Peter's cat, Lisa Marie, used to go back and forth with him to visit me, and she got tired of that, so she moved in with me. And then later on, Peter did, and then we got a place together in Heinsberg that was between my work in Middlebury and Peter's work in at St. Michael's.
And we should explain that Peter didn't throw the ball for Stan's amusement, that there might be another family member in the room who occasionally is going to need to be given some attention.
That's
true.
correct.
A little furry someone named Ginger.
Ginger.
All right. Okay, so being a couple in a litigation that people knew had the potential for incredible impact and scope, that's a major step. That's a major decision. So I really need to hear, what was your political involvement within the queer community up to that point? And then we can talk some about why you said, yes, we want to do that. What made that a good and an okay decision for you?
So I grew up in a fairly political family in Long Beach. My dad was a college professor and my mom was a school administrator at high school. And they were very active. They were Quakers. I grew up in a Quaker family. So they were out doing stuff all the time, demonstrating, doing socially aware stuff, having men from halfway houses come live at our house on their way out of prison to elsewhere, things like that. So I was not, I was doing stuff, taking a stand to change our society was not new to me. And then in Vermont, I was on the board of Outright Vermont, and aware, as when I came out, aware, actually before I came out, aware of queer politics here, and then when I came out, wanting to jump into them. So that's kind of my background. And I'd say one more thing and then turn it over to Peter. We were not at gay same-sex marriage was not on the docket for us. It didn't seem, it's not even something we thought much about. We knew we were committed to each other. We were buying a house together, yada, yada, yada. But I think you've heard this, Keith, in the Middlebury thing. I was asked by Joseph Watson to narrate the 17-minute Freedom to Marry a Green Mountain View that was being used around the state for educational purposes when people would go out and talk about same-sex marriage. Having done that, Peter and I both listened to that, thought about it, and talked, and all of a sudden realized that same-sex marriage was a possibility and not just sort of some over the rainbow kind of thing. So that's where I would stop at this point.
I think a lot of my kind of journey toward activism happened at St. Michael's, just in terms of the values that community holds, and how progressive it is, particularly for a Catholic institution. And one of the places where I've tried to sort of exercise that muscle a bit has been in some of the plays that I've directed. And the first play I did coming back to St. Michael's was Execution of Justice, which is about the trial of Dan White for the murders of Harvey Milk and George Moscone. And it was sort of, it wasn't intended to be a coming out to the community, but it ended up being one. I revisited many sort of political topics in plays over the years, but also got involved with some organizing on campus. Dave Landers and a number of other people brought a large display of the AIDS memorial quilt to the college in 1995. And those were sort of my steps toward public action.
I was going to say a quick sort of, oh my goodness, how we trip over each other through our lives. I attended that performance.
Oh, wow.
I attended because David Landers brought me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting in the audience wearing a Queer Nation t-shirt. And David told me afterwards, the cast recognized, sort of looked over, saw the t-shirt, and it was like, we've got to be good.
That's great.
Okay, and who can say no to Joseph Watson?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, really. Okay, so you decide, okay, we'll do this. How did you prepare yourselves prepare your family, your friends, and how did the Freedom to Marry Task Force help you prepare for we're filing this case and then we're waiting?
So before we started the formal interview, we were remembering training that was given, not just to the plaintiffs, but to other people close to the case, like you and others, on how to talk to the press, what might come up, what to be aware of, what to be careful of, how to do a soundbite, all that kind of thing. And I would say that our lawyers, Susan Murray and Beth Robinson and Mary Bonato, were consistently on top of what was happening nationally and internationally in terms of the ramifications of the case, the publicity it was getting, any threats that were coming. So they were often informing us of something and also kind of taking care of us. And I would say, too, that the plaintiff group took care of each other. You might remember that Nina and Stacy's infant son died of heart complications in the first year of the lawsuit. I believe it was the first year.
Yes.
And the lawyer said, Nina and Stacy, if you need to step aside, we'll understand. And they said, no, we're in this and we're going to do it in the memory of our son. Then they had another son, Seth, who's now graduated from college and off in his own life. But that kind of thing was very powerful. Peter and I had some scary moments. I certainly became more paranoid, not in a terrible way, about checking the bushes when I came home, making sure there weren't strange cars. When we went and spoke, always figuring where are the exits, how would we get out of here if somebody was threatening us, which really only happened once at one of the Vermont State colleges, and security came and stopped that person before they got to us. But that kind of thing. And then Peter and I were on the website of the Westboro Baptist Church. I think under our names it said Vermont Fag Beasts, and above that was something else about
The filthy face of Vermont fag evil.
the filthy face of Vermont Fag Evil. So things like that were, and our lawyer said, before you see this, we want you to know that it's there. So I'm going to say one more thing and then turn it over to Peter. We both worked in one thing that Peter's been good about saying, I should let him say, is that one of the reasons we did this is that we had jobs that allowed us to do it without danger of being fired or losing those jobs, and family settings that were supportive enough. So I was then at the Counseling Service of Addison County and did let everyone there know, not asking permission, but this is going to happen. It's going to be in the newspaper. Our picture and stuff will be splashed all over the place. And I let my clients know. Because as a psychotherapist, you don't want your clients to be surprised by some public thing about you they don't know about. I did lose two clients, two families over that, but no one else. And life then continued on.
Yep.
Okay, we are rapidly running out of time because and we know when we get together, it's, there we go. So, Peter, what is life like now for the two of you?
Well, I think we've settled into our kind of slightly suburban, middle class dream, if you will. We have a great time together. We enjoy spending time with friends and family. We have godchildren, some of whom are related to us, others who are chosen. We've really enjoyed sort of being connected to the community here and just kind of living that out. I think we've both had other issues that were important to us over the years, and things that we've worked on. But this is really was an amazing thing to be a part of, that we both are grateful for.
Thank you. And with that, it sounds as like you get to be just a comfortable old married couple. When the limelight dies, you looked at each other and said, I'm glad you're here.
Well, and the limelight keeps coming back, which is a little strange. So now the 25th anniversary, there we were in 7 days, and I know in July, beginning of July, there will be a big free press spread because that's when the 25th anniversary of the law beginning starts. So it's a little strange to be back and being that sort of dual thing that's both Stan Baker but also Baker. And but it's kind of fun too. I mean, it's fun. I don't think either of us are frightened by it.
No, no, and it's gratifying to have younger, like younger neighbors, some of my students, people who didn't necessarily live here or were alive, when all of this was happening, for them to sort of learn the stories and what the experience was like. And I think for them to sort of have a sense that there was really not that much distance between them and the people in power, in Vermont, certainly, and that they, I hope it's encouragement for them to get involved in the issues that are important to them.
And I think the people, the young people, it's been quite gratifying that some people had no idea what it was like, and they're learning that, and they're both, it makes making them want to do more, but also making them grateful in a nice way. So that's been interesting. And I have just one more thing. I'm amazed how people go to what I call default so often. I think I read to people as old straight white guy. So I'm finding I'm constantly having to come out again. And that my favorite way to come out is to say, oh, me and my husband Peter. And then you can see them readjust from default to, oh, queer, husband, Peter. So that's a wonderful way to be able to come out over and over again, to just mention my husband Peter.
I get the old man, but I've never got the straight guy comment, so I can't imagine why.
Well,
So,
I don't know why either.
so thank you so much. And I just want to share with you briefly, saying goodbye, that I've had my straight friends come up to me saying, "Oh my God, wasn't that such a wonderful article in 7 days?" And they're reflecting on, this is what we went through, and now we sit there 25 years later and go, what was the big deal?
Right.
So
Although we're
thank
entering a political time now where it may be a big deal again, so we all have to be on guard, awake and watching.
and thank you for
Thank
helping
you.
us transition into the, oh, that's just my married neighbors. So,
Yes,
and again, Stan, I'm going to be circling around for that clergy talk.
sure. Happy to do that. It's you push a button and I do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to visit someone that we've spoken with in the past, but haven't for a while. And it's starting to get to be that spring, summer season that we look forward to. And they have a unique venue to offer to our community. So please welcome back Jeff Jensen from the Vermont Freedom Campground. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's been a while, and we approve of the new look.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a little bit sort of background, I had stumbled across the Vermont Freedom Campground while I was sort of looking at resources here in the state of the Vermont, and it absolutely intrigued me. And, looking at the write-up about the campground, it was promoted as an over 18 clothing optional campground. So I wanted to find out more about, how did that happen to come into being in Vermont? And then I learned it was run by two gay men. So I absolutely wanted to know your experience in running this campground. So let's start with, what was your interest, first and foremost, a campground in Vermont and one that was clothing optional?
Well, my husband and I had been together for 15 years and we had no friends. We had no one to go out to dinner with. We had no one to talk with. We knew nobody. And my aunt sold me, or my aunt called me up one day and wanted to get rid of her camper. And her husband has emphysema and she couldn't feel confident being out on the road with him anymore. So she sold it to me cheap. And so I Googled gay campgrounds in Wisconsin, and turns out there is a place 30 miles from us. And we went there, and the owner put us on the site, and we never left that site for 8 years. We found our best friends, who are actually a heterosexual couple, Mike and Carol, and I have never had a best friend in my life. And so we found that the people at the campground, there was something about the no clothes thing that made people, I don't know if it was more honest or what exactly happened, but now we have a whole group of friends that we met from that campground. In fact, some of them visited us in Mexico this year. So the owner of that campground was a heavy drinker, and the first day that I got there, I told my husband that there would come a day when we would have to leave, because I can only tolerate so much bull. And 8 years later, it hit the top, and I said, we got to go. And so I was selling my business at the time, and retiring from auto repair, and needed something to do so that my ass didn't grow huge. And I went on the internet and Googled campgrounds for sale, and this place in Vermont showed up. And the thing about a clothing optional campground is you need to buy a campground that is closed, because if you buy an existing campground with customers, part of the sale price is that you are paying for their customers. And so this place was closed. And I looked at the pictures of it online, and I went, oh my God, this is, and I had already bought it. My husband, though, said we have to go look at it before we're going to think about buying it. And so we flew out to Vermont in December. And I don't know if you know about Vermont in December is a winter wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
We went out and tried to look at the campground, and we're walking through 3 feet of snow, got about 10 feet into the place, and said, we can't do this. So we went home, and my husband said, we go out when the snow is gone, and then, you'll decide. Well, we ended up buying it that spring, and opened it up, and that's how it happened.
Okay, so was it already established as a clothing optional campground when you went to look at it?
No,
or was that
it was closed.
no. It
yeah,
was
but
clothed.
our campground was built in 2004. The original owners went bankrupt in 2006 because it was back in the day when the banks were giving too much money.
Right.
They had given them a $650,000 loan, and they couldn't pay it, so they went bankrupt. It sat empty for 2 years. It was sold at sheriff's auction, and it was bought by a couple that lived in South Dakota.
Okay.
They opened it for 2 years, and in the second year that they owned it, the wife's father got killed in a car accident.
Ooh.
So they did not come there for 2 years. Then for the next 10 years, they only came for 2 weeks in the summertime and cut the grass and did whatever fixing up. So the buildings were starting to deteriorate. The bank had shut off the electricity, so the house that was on the property filled up with water and became mold infested, and so the old owners tore it down. And so it was sitting empty. And so it had been empty for 10 years. The locals, when I arrived there, I would be standing in the place, and people would pull up and they would say, are you buying this place? And I'd say, yes. And they'd, oh my God, I was so tired of driving past this place. It was so depressing. So they were like, wow. And I said, well, now it's a clothing optional campground. And they're like, good, yippee, we when we went to Vermont to buy it, we had decided to be hush hush about the fact that it was going to be clothing optional. Well, then we found out it's legal in Vermont to be naked in public. And so it's like
Absolutely.
we don't even have to be quiet about it. So we really haven't had any. I mean, you occasionally have someone will drive by and yell, you know, a bunch of faggots or something like that, you know, but it's
Yeah.
we occasionally get people who will stop in the road and gawk at the people in the campground and stuff like that. It's kind of like the state representative. There's a good article if you can. Well, I have it. It quotes the guy saying, other than people driving by for an occasional view of flesh, there's really nothing he can do about it because we're not breaking any law or anything. It was an interesting article because he talked so negatively about Vermont. He talked about the bugs. He talked about, you know, everything that was negative about it. And I thought, God, I hope you don't work for the tourism department. But
So,
it's a good.
so I was
Go
going to say,
ahead.
so let's talk about the campground itself. It's how many acres is it? You have both tent and RV camper sites, and I understand I could also rent a camper or a cabin. And
Right.
and I loved the sort of intro to the campground itself. It's, 18 and above, everyone is welcome. Anyone that can coexist peacefully with others is welcome. There is, despite your saying that, sort of your tolerance might get pushed, all of the reviews talk about how you and Craig create this welcoming environment that was comfortable for people. And I believe you're quoted as saying, this is clothing optional. You do what feels comfortable for you, but being nude in the woods has an incredibly liberating experience that you can't appreciate until you experience it. So tell me about the campground
You have a
itself.
lot of in that that statement there. Okay. For one thing, we are not a gay only campground.
Correct.
I don't feel that I need to discriminate against anybody coming there. I have nothing against straight people. I have nothing against lesbians. Everybody is welcome there. I am told that there are many gay men that would come there if it was exclusively gay, but they will not come there because it is mixed. And to them, I say, well, then don't come there.
Right.
The campground is 8 acres. We have 13 acres of deer sanctuary.
Ooh.
I have to maintain that 13 acres to provide a evergreen canopy to provide a microclimate for the deer to survive and live through the winter. And that was part of what the Act 250 thing that allowed the campground to be built. I don't know that I would say that is necessarily myself. The first year that we were open, I don't like I like the word fortunate. Blessed is too religious. I am very fortunate that the first year there was a group of what would be 8 campers with maybe 2 people, so 16 people that came there, and they've never left. And they are the backbone of the campground. I could not run the campground without them.
Okay, I want to interrupt you just really quickly here. So, in addition to this being a seasonal venture for some people, if I have an RV or a camper that I want to find a location and just park it there and let it stay there, that would be an option?
If I let you.
Oh, well,
See,
that's the optional part, but
here's the
it
here.
would be something to discuss.
I'm very careful about letting any other seasonals in because it is so perfect right now that I don't want to screw it up by bringing in people that don't get along with other people. And
Yeah.
the group that I have is so special that
Okay.
first of all, I'd have to know you. I won't take somebody just a phone call that says I want to stay there. I have to know you. I have to know who you are, and if that were the case, I might consider another seasonal. But
Okay.
but right now, we're at what we
You're
consider.
at you're at capacity for the seasonal, but I could talk with you, develop a relationship, and I might be put on a wait list for,
Right.
we'll see what's happening. Okay,
Exactly.
so looking
Exactly.
at the campground, you're not on a lake, you're not on a river. Lake Willoughby is approximately 40 minutes away, but I understand you do have a heated pool, which is
Right.
advantageous in Vermont, and a hot tub.
We have 3 hot tubs. We can
Ooh,
hold 24 people in the hot tubs. Um, there is a swimming pool which is heated. Um, Caspian Lake, which is a good swimming lake, is 5 miles away from us.
oh, okay.
So that's very close. That we do have a pond, but it's not swimmable yet. I need to dig it out again. But
I
I hope.
think Lake Willoughby may have been referenced because on the south beach at Willoughby it's a clothing optional beach, and I
Right.
don't know that Lake Caspian has that same option.
Caspian is not a nude
Okay.
beach.
Okay.
Willoughby has a nude beach, but not
Right.
Caspian.
Okay.
But you don't have to have your clothes off everywhere.
Okay. I'll keep that in
But
mind.
actually, in Vermont, you could. I mean, if you want to go to Lake Caspian and take your clothes off, it's legal. Just you have to exit your car with your clothes off. You cannot
Correct.
disrobe in public. That is illegal.
Now going back to your campground,
Right.
you have sites that have
We
amps,
have 45
electricity.
sites that have
Okay.
electric and water.
Oh, okay.
And then we have tents. I mean, we have a bunch of space for tents. We could hold, who knows, 30 tents there probably.
Okay.
Um, the
And there's a common bathroom,
Right.
but there's no store on site. But I believe I read you do sell wood and ice.
We sell wood and ice, and then there's Smith's Grocery, which is 1 mile away.
Okay.
And they have a convenience store fully stocked, and they have a deli that makes food. So if you don't want to cook, you can go down there and eat every meal.
Okay. I'm going to just ask it. I mean, because it's clearly within walking distance and people would be hiking, have people ever just sort of wandered down to the store and forgot to get clothes before they went down? Has that happened?
We've had people walk down the road naked,
Okay.
and it's very fun because it creates, oh my God, everybody talks about it. The
Okay.
neighbors all talk about it. And I said, I didn't believe it because the people that did it, I would have never expected them to do that. And yeah, one of the farmers was just standing out in his front yard, and these naked people come walking down the street. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so if I were someone who was camping there, are the boundaries of the campground and the trails clearly marked
Oh
so I
yeah.
know when I've gone past what is the campground's site?
Yeah, we are. We have 2 roads. We're on a corner,
Okay.
and so there's a corner. I mean, there's a road on the left side. There's a road in the front. The right side is it becomes a swampy area, so
Okay.
you'll be in a swamp if you go too far that way. And the back area has a fence going across it, but the neighbors that are behind us, they'd love you to visit, whether you got clothes on or not. They're
I
very
was gonna say,
friendly.
so there's some natural boundaries, so it would be easy for me to recognize. Okay, before we run out of time, you also host special events, and I see that on May 25th is your first event, Memorial Day barbecue. Then you're doing a Father's Day, and for what looks like the 4th of July weekend, an illumination weekend where I get to sort of light up my campground, and then a prom night. So could you talk about how I know that entertainment is not part of the package, but you do special events, how those came about?
That the originally when I bought the campground, I wanted to have drag shows, and I have a
Okay.
stage in the barn, and it's lit up, and it has a curtain in it, the whole thing. And what happened is that it's become so expensive to hire drag performers that I
Oh,
couldn't do it.
okay.
And so I told them that we weren't going to do any more drag shows unless I might do something and bring in some people from New York City, but it becomes a $2,000 deal by the time you're done with it, and it's expensive. And so those 16 people, the core group that I was telling you about,
Right.
all of those events that you mentioned, they are running.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They have we have a group chat, and oh my God, all of a sudden there'll be 32 or 50 messages. Ding, 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 ding. That group is responsible for every bit of the entertainment, and they are amazing. And I supply money, they supply the talent, and so all of that stuff is their idea. And so
Okay.
yeah, there will be stuff going on.
Okay, and we'll attend and then be the judge of talent. I
Well,
or it's just an evening of fun. It's
it's just fun. I mean, it's people come there. Uh, the I get a constant people telling me that they have never met a more friendlier group of people than our seasonals. They, it's not a clique. That's what I found at most campgrounds is there are cliques set up, and
yeah.
nobody, from this clique does with this clique and that. We have, I kid them about there's we have the lower area and then the upper area, and I call it them cliques, and I talk about, so, but they're not really cliques. I just like to kid them about it, but no, they are. I never cease to hear people say how welcoming every last one of them is. And so
And that's what keeps getting repeated in the reviews for the campground is I wasn't really sure what to expect. This was an open and embracing, and I felt comfortable and accepted. There was no expectation of what I was or was not going to do. I could keep clothing on, clothing off. And
no one
so
is
with
allowed to give you any static about your clothes. If you want to keep clothes on the whole weekend, the week, the whatever, I don't care. Nobody cares.
Okay, and I'm gonna, with our remaining time, just make reference to you have both a Facebook and a website that people can go on, look at photographs of the campground, see a layout, get, a sense of what the rates are, and then how to, you know, make those reservations. The other thing I noticed is that you have day passes, 9
Right.
a.m. to 9 p.m. So if this is something that I'm not really sure about, I could come up, I could spend the day, I could sort of walk around, see how this feels without having to make any greater commitment than that one day.
Right. It's nice to just come up. A lot of people come up and lay in the sun, use the swimming pool, sit in the hot tubs, and then go home. And that's fine. I mean, and we have some locals that will come up at 5 o'clock at night and just want to sit in the hot tub for a few hours, and you're welcome.
So not only are you a tourist resource, you're a community resource, and it sounds as though the relationship that you've developed with the geographic community has been very supportive, going sort of in both directions.
Well,
So
there's nothing in this area for the LGBTQ plus people.
don't I know
have
that?
I come from Madison, Wisconsin, and we have so many places to go. And I come out there and there's nowhere. I only wish I could provide something over the winter, but I'm not allowed to stay open because of my Act 250 plan.
Okay, so you open on May 1st. When is your closing?
October 20th is the last day.
Okay, so with that, thank you. I'm now that circumstances allow it, I'm looking forward to perhaps coming up and spending a day and walking around and looking at what might be possible in the future. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And until next time, remember, resist.